Professional Counseling Association.
Okay, okay. And that's for...
Just let me do it, Roger.
Okay, you want to introduce yourself? Yeah, okay, yes. Yeah, welcome Dr. John Michael.
I'll do it with you.
Yes.
I'll do it with you.
Okay, okay. And let's see. And what else do you do besides the professional marriage counseling?
Yeah, so our group is called Professional Counseling Associates, and we've got about 20 providers. And a guy named Dr. Raymond Branton and I run the practice, and we try to help lots of people. So lots of church referrals and people from the community, and we work with kids all the way to older people, and try to help wherever we can. So individuals, couples, you name it, we try to help.
Okay, well, welcome.
All right. Thanks. All right, thanks. Hey, so if I ditch the microphone, would that be all right?
Yeah.
Sure? All right, so let's get
Try
settled
it
in.
for a while, we'll see, huh?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, we'll try to work out. Did everybody get lunch?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for lunch.
Yeah. Smiles? All right. All right, let me get settled here. I have no idea what to do with this, Roger.
Okay.
Put it on mute.
Okay.
All right, let me get settled. I just turned 50 a couple weeks ago. It sounds so weird coming out of my mouth. So look what I have. I have my contacts in for distance, so I can see you, David. And so when I try to transition, all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, I can't see close up anymore. So how many of you are over 45? Yeah. It's like in that 41, 43, 45 range that all of a sudden you got a trombone and everything just to see it. And I never thought I would get there. And here I am. So I'm sad, I'm disappointed. No, I'm all right.
Over 50, you get to go to Tribal.
Oh, try, nice. All right. All right. Well, thank you for having me. Everybody been enjoying the premarital work? All right. So we got today, and then I think tomorrow's the last day, right? So you have one session tomorrow? All right. So good. We also love your feedback, and so we've been doing this for a long time. So all of your table, couples table leaders would love to, I don't know if you're going to do a review or evaluation. Thank you. See, you get older, you forget words. So be really diligent doing that, because we love to know moving forward how to best help. And so, and speaking of that, that's been my prayer since I was really young. Julie and I got married when we were 22. We met in college, and we dated for 2 years. And then we were going to announce our engagement right around Thanksgiving. So my family met and had this dinner at my brother's place. And so Julie and I were going to tell everybody, hey, we're getting engaged and we're going to get married, you know, right around Christmas. And my brother and his live-in girlfriend show up, and they'd been living together for a long time, and they walk in the door and they announce they're getting married. Like right near Christmas. And Julie and I are like, what are we going to do? So I would look like a jerk if I said, hey, wait a minute, we're getting married at Christmas. So we actually put it off for a whole 6 months to get married, because we were just out of school, or going to be out of school. And I was working for the county in a probation officer. I was working in the jail, and my wife was a high school teacher right out of college. And all we had was spring break. That's when you get married, you know, when you're teaching or whatever. And we didn't have any comp time or anything built up. So we had to extend it a year. So we dated for 2 years. We were engaged for a whole year. And it was great to have that much time, but we were still delayed in our plans. So, but that was a long time ago now. So we're going on 28 years this March. And I set out early on after marriage, and after I got into my work as a social worker counselor, and then on to seminary for counseling. I vowed that I would try to figure out what makes for a great relationship, especially a marriage relationship. And so for the last 20 plus years, I've been on that journey. And so what I want to share with you today is what I've learned, at least one guy, through schooling, through seminary, through my my postgraduate degree, my work with couples, individuals, all my clients over the years in counseling, and from my dysfunctional family and my wife's family, all that combined, I'm going to share with you where I've landed about what makes the best marriage. And I know that sounds pretty daunting, and I'll get you out of here right at 5 o'clock, and it'll be really good. so we're going to try to attempt to cover a bunch of stuff for just a couple hours. And so I've tried to synthesize it as best I can. And then remember, this takes practice. So we're going to talk a lot today about emotions and reactions, and again, what would galvanize your relationship for a lifetime. Okay. All right. So I have no idea what your notebook looks like this time around. So flip past the bio there. What tab we got? All right. Good. So for some of you like fill-ins, I'll work through this little outline. Stop me anytime. If you have any questions, just pipe up, and we'll make some sense of this. Okay. So. Look at that top part. Emotions are celebrated and repressed, analyzed, medicated, adored, and ignored. But rarely, if ever, are they honored. I have no idea who Carla McLaren is, but I love that quote. So think about James right there, 4:1. What causes quarrels and fights among you? Have you all gotten in any arguments or fights yet with your fiance? Okay. No? Well, today's the day. Conflict is natural. So James 4:1, what causes quarrels and fights among you? Don't you know it comes from the desires within? What do you desire? What have you always desired in your life? From the time you were really little, what did you want? What do we want to get? This is the group participation part. What do we always want to get?
Our way.
Our way. And if we get our way, how do we feel? Good. No, what do we want feeling-wise? What do you want to know about yourself? What do you want to know in your heart? That you're what? Loved. What else? Validated. What was that?
Worthy.
Yeah, worthy. Anyone else? Appreciated. Important. Special. Secure. Connected. Wanted. Significant. Right? Well, that's what we want. Well, according to James 4:1, what do we do when we don't get that? We try to get it, right? And so that's kind of the premise that we're going to work on here about emotions, especially in relation to your marriage, okay? So every person in the world has emotions. We all have it. I get guys come into my counseling office and they go, well, I'm just not a very emotional person. And I just kind of smile and go, well, okay. How many of you have ever said that about yourselves? Yeah, it's just not true. I'm sorry. Everyone has stuff going on in here. Whether we want to embrace it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, whether we want to deal with it and expose it or not, I think that's the issue. But I think from a long, long time ago, we've had stuff etched on our hearts that maybe we have or have not really recognized or embraced. And sometimes we do a bunch of stuff when those things get activated. And so I want to try to highlight that today. You know, what do you actually do when your stuff gets activated? And do you really even know what it is? And so we're going to work through that. So I think that in looking at emotions in a new way, we're going to find a way to get closer to God, closer to each other. So think about that. So where do you think your emotions happen? Now, a lot of analytical people say, wow, you know, you have this thought, and then that's why you have a feeling, which I think is true. It's partially true. But I think through Scripture we can see this combination of head and heart, right? Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Do you have eyes in your heart? As one thinks in his heart, so is he. Well, do you really think in your heart? So I think that combination is really close. And so I want to cover some of that. So in a way, I have some questions on here for you. Where did your emotions come from? How do you judge your emotions in general? So I always tell this story. When I was really young, I was 13, and sports was my deal. And we moved to Arizona when I was about 1973. I was about 7 years old. And my brother, I have two older brothers. Steve is 3.5 years older than I am, and then Tom is just a year after him. And they got into all kinds of stuff, but sports wasn't it. And for some reason, as I got older, I just wanted to throw stuff. When I was 5, I threw some rocks out in the street in my grandparents' place in Chicago, and I hit a cop car, and I ran upstairs and hid under the bed. I was always throwing stuff. And so I discovered when I was old enough to know that I could throw a ball pretty well. I mean, I throw footballs and baseballs, and so I took to sports really early. And so my first Little League year, I was in the all-star team, had all these coaches coming over, and they wanted me on their team, and just somehow it became part of my identity, that I was a cute kid that could throw a ball. So I've lost both of those, by the way, so I'm mourning that. But so when I was 13, I'd really grown in football and baseball, and so I was put on this select team, this 13-year-old team, District All-Stars. And so we started winning a bunch of games, and we were going to start competing for the Little League World Series. My dad, German dad, Italian mom, really calm, right? My mom's parents were from Italy, and so they immigrated to Chicago area. And my mom's oldest brother was 10 years older than her. So my mom was like the princess. She was like the American kid that could do whatever she wanted to do. Her parents didn't know what was going on. And so my mom became very independent, very on her own, and was kind of tricky, and so very aggressive. And so so here I am, I'm 13. I'm playing in this game. I'm pitching. I'm throwing a no-hitter through 6. Everybody okay with baseball references? Yeah, all right. I'm throwing a no-hitter through 6. I'm sitting in the dugout, waiting to go back out. My little mom comes up to the dugout, and she says, "John, what are you doing?" And I said, "Mom, I'm throwing a no-hitter." She's like, "Why did you walk that kid? Why do you do this crap to me?" And so I started arguing with her. "Mom, I can walk a kid. He didn't hit the ball. He didn't score. I still have a no-hitter going. Leave me alone. I got to go back out there." I mean, I'm 13. Do you remember when you were 13? Now, even at 50, I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember where I was sitting. I remember my uniform. I remember my mom right there in my face. So I start arguing with her, and she's relentless. She puts her fingers through the chain link fence and says, "Give me your bubble gum. It's throwing you off balance. I can't believe we're doing this again." And I'm thinking, it's my game. I love chewing bubble gum out on the mound, and I'm doing great. So I get upset. I cross my arms, and I slam her hand in the fence. And I say to myself, as soon as I'm able, I am out of here. I'm as far away from this lady as I can get. Now, where am I going to go, right? I'm 13. So, get in the car after the game and go back home, really. But at 13, what do you tell yourself when stuff like that happens? Now, I'm just talking about emotions. Now, I want to set this straight. I wasn't abused, even though we were spanked or beaten, for discipline. I wasn't unloved or neglected, okay? But in those types of instances, and I've got about 50 of them that I've told a lot of them over the years, so you guys know some of them, but I've got a lot of cases, a lot of incidents where things like this in my family had happened. Well, when you're a kid, what do you really feel? What do you really call it? And what do you really do? So if you were me in that moment, what would you say to yourself? What would you do? What do you call it? Do you sit there and go, "Man, you know what? My mom's really struggling tonight. She's just, I don't know what it is about Mom, but somehow my game is more important to her than it is to me, and I don't know what that is. Man, poor Mom. She doesn't know what's going on. Bless her heart. She just doesn't know." Do you do that at 13?
No.
What about 23? What about 33? No, maybe. But my point is this. In that moment, I had a lot of stuff going on in my heart. I can think back when I was even 7 shining my dad's shoes? Why'd you miss a spot? You always miss a spot. Why can't you ever earn a quarter? I'm 17 for playing football. Hey, you can't have that many turnovers. You're not going to be able to play college ball. I'm 40 years old, preaching, teaching. My dad says, man, you look nervous up there. I do a project in my house. Well, why'd you do it that way? Now, I've realized over the years that a part of that's not about me. But the part that is about me is that I've always interpreted things a certain way. And I've always had feelings in my heart. So at 13, I wasn't able to go, man, right now I'm feeling really judged, really misperceived, really controlled. Huh, that's interesting. Really inadequate, not good enough. What do you want to hear in your life? Just like you said, you want to hear that you're good enough. You want to hear that you're valid and worthy and loved, right? But somehow, because of the way we code things, we may feel very different things. I coded it like I wasn't good enough. You with me? All right, so let's put a pin in that for a second, and let's go back to the outline here. So I judged my emotions and my own heart in general as bad, as negative. And I decided I'm not going to deal with that. I'm going to go on the mound and show her who's the boss. So I get out there and I blow the biggest bubble I can blow just to spite the lady and to prove that I'm good enough after all. So in a way, a lot of stuff was etched on my heart. I didn't even know what it was. Part of it was because of how I judged or coded what my mom was saying or doing. Okay, you with me? So in a way, I blamed her for what was happening inside of me. And I decided to fight against it. Now, what do you think some other kids do? Run away, shut down. Okay? If we don't deal with what's in here, what I'm going to suggest is that we do. And we may do it aggressively, we may do it passively, but we're still dealing with it. All right, so what do you try to feel? What feelings do you try to avoid? What feelings do you try to embrace? Think about how we've judged feelings. Tell me some good feelings. Happy. See, it's the opposite of what you just told me before, right? Loved, accepted, good enough, wanted, right? Important, yeah. So we have learned to judge certain feelings as bad, certain feelings as good. Well, I want to try to change that around a little bit today so we can work at it. So a new way to look at emotions. Look at those feelings right there. What we're going to do now is we're going to talk about feelings or emotions as information. So you see where it says not right there and then the line? Okay, not good or bad or right or wrong. So your feelings are not good, bad, right, or wrong. And right now people are going, well, this is silly. What is this about? Okay, stay with me on this. I think your heart matters. And I think a lot of stuff's happened in there. If you're like me and you've had any time under your belt, something's going on in there. Now, for you guys, I like to lift weights. I played sports. I played golf. I have a dirt bike. I pee in the woods. I've had the same hairstyle for decades, okay? My underwear comes like 4 to a pack for $9.99. I love being a guy, okay? I don't get cramps, right? My last name stayed put when I got married. There are a lot of benefits to being a guy, okay? Chocolate's just another snack. I love being a guy. I think it's probably a lot easier than being a girl, okay? I admire women greatly. But I also know that as a man, sometimes we're told that, well, we're not feelings based. We're realists. We get stuff done, right? But I think that I have a lot going on in here. I always have. And I think it's great for a man, especially, to investigate what's always happened in there. And I think in your marriages, that's going to be very, very important. And we'll get to that as we go. But I want to just say that no matter your gender, I think your heart is very important. You know, the word heart is in Scripture about 900 times. I mean, that sounds facetious, but it's about 900 times. Think of Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. Where your treasure is, there your heart is also. I'm not going to give you all 900, but there's a bunch in there. And I think that's where feelings happen. So if I can start looking at my feelings, I'm going to start saying they're not good, bad, right, or wrong. They just happen. Could I have controlled what my mom said or did when I was a kid? No. Could I have controlled what messages I absorbed right away? It doesn't seem like it. So I think a lot of stuff's been etched on my heart. And I used to think of all that stuff as bad. I don't want to deal with that. I'm out of here. And I think a lot of people move that way. I had 3 couples in my office yesterday, same issue. The guy comes home, he's upset, he doesn't know why. His wife comes to ask him a question, he shuts down and he walks out. Then he goes and gets drunk and comes back home and he thinks everything's fine. And how is she feeling? Really unloved and really isolated, really unimportant. So then she wants to deal with it, and what does he do? Forget it, I'm out of here. I can't believe you're being this way to me. And we see it over and over and over again. And we're going to work on how to not have this cycle. So if they're not good, bad, right, or wrong, just important information, then we have to see that next line. Emotions happen in the most important place, your heart, my heart. Okay? Not good, bad, right, or wrong. Important place right in your heart. So, with the emotions written on your heart, number 2 there, I want you to start thinking that some of your feelings have actually become messages. Okay? My feelings can be seen as very personal messages. So take my story real quick. So if I code my mom this way, then what is she trying to tell me about me, even though I'm pitching a great game? What's the message I get? That I'm not good enough, inadequate, like a failure, that I don't measure up. And then we can go into some more personal stuff like controlled and judged, right? Well, I started believing that that's who I was, that I'm just the inadequate kid, and all he's good for is possibly winning a game. So there was that real stuff going on inside, but I didn't know what to call it. I just figured like, well, forget that. I'm out of here. I'm going to perform like a monkey on a box so nobody could say that I'm bad. And I learned that that was my identity. Does that make sense? So my feelings became my identity. So these can be seen negatively, and I can see feelings as negative instead of good information. So what I'm going to transition this into your marriage. If we can deal with feelings as information, then when your buttons get pushed, your feelings get activated in your relationship, you'll be able to go, wow, what is that? So this first session, we're going to talk about identifying your emotions, embracing them, and then doing something very different with them, okay? Is that a good premise? All right, so your feelings are information. So what happens with most people that I work with, and a lot of us, and what happened in my life, is that I started thinking that my feelings were my identity. So right there in that line there, it says, because of this, I have a hard time separating my feelings and messages from my identity. That would be that last line to fill in. All right, any questions so far? All right. So I want you to start thinking of some of your life experiences. How did you code them? What happened in your heart? What is it called? Now, we all have experiences in this life, right? So even as older people, teenagers, young adults, right? Adults, we can be impacted by this world. Well, I think that this world continues to push those same things for us. If I say something a little off, if I do something that I think somebody's not happy with me, I think I have the same stuff etched on my heart, and I think it can get activated at any time. So think about your life experiences, including your families, what's happened in your relationships with each other. Think about how you get activated and what it is in there. Okay? Think about this quote. I love John Eldredge, Waking the Dead. Year after year, word after word, our life scripts are etched, layer by layer, nearly imperceptibly, our self-images are created, and in time we join in, we help out. I can't do that, I've never been good at that, I always mess that up. So we add our 2 cents to the already big problem. We believe what we are being told by others and what we are telling ourselves. That repetition is a convincing argument. In time, we become what we most believed about ourselves. I thought I was the most inadequate person ever. And if anybody knew what was really going on inside, I brought my little friend today. If anybody knew what was going on inside of me, I would be judged that way. That I'm just a failure. I'm the fraud. I'm the guy who doesn't really know what he's doing. And I don't want anybody to see that. Make sense? So we suppress it, but yet we join in. Make sense? All right, so I want you to think about some of your most ingrained emotions. For some of you, it might be hard. You've always decided, hey, I don't want to feel that. I had a fireman yesterday in my office. He shuts it all out. He doesn't want to think about the burning building or the guy inside. He doesn't want to think about the diabetic who's crashing. He doesn't want to think about the baby that died. He doesn't want to embrace any of that because he's too afraid to feel it again. And so when he goes home, is he open or is he closed? Closed. Think about it this way, guys. Jonathan, you have a heart, right? What's your name?
Amanda.
Amanda, don't worry, I won't embarrass you. Okay. So Amanda has a heart. Jonathan has a heart, right? So when stuff happens, which it does, and you feel controlled or judged or unloved today, do you think you want your heart to stay open, or does it feel like it closes? Most people would say, it feels like I'm getting closed. I don't want to deal with that. Well, if you come home and show up like this, what do you think then gets pushed for your spouse to be? Potentially some feeling, right? So closed. Now we have this. And in a lot of our relationships, this is how we operate. And we realize, well, we think, if this person would just be open with me and do what I want, then it'll help me get open and we'll be fine. Right? Sounds good. So if I come home every day and I expect my wife to be open and she's not, then what's my position? Closed. And so we'll work through this afternoon. This is difficult at best. This is difficult. This is difficult. We're going to go for this. All right? So I want you to think about what's happened in your heart in your life and what is it called? There's some I listed there for you just for openers. Think about some of those feelings. So we're going to call feelings for a while buttons. Have you ever heard that? People go, man, that guy's just pushing my buttons, or man, her buttons really got pushed. So we're going to use those terms interchangeably. Okay, feelings or buttons. So let's look at that right there. So if we're going to make feelings information and not our identities, then it might be better if we take the intensity out of them, okay? Am I the inadequate kid, and did my mom want to hurt me? What's the answer? No. Did it hurt? Yes. So if I take the intensity out of it and start looking at it more objectively, then I can say, wow, there's that inadequate thing again. Interesting. And wow, man, my mom, something's going on for my mom. I wonder what that is. That's going to be a basic move that's going to be the best for your relationship, for your marriage long term. So everyone has buttons. They're your tender spots, the places where you're most sensitive, the points where you get irritated, hurt, angry, have to react. So I think that buttons get triggered by specific events or circumstances, how we code them, okay? So, all right. So I want you to think about some of your life and what happens in your heart. So flip a few pages there real quick. Put your thumb where you're at, and then flip a little ways to that first chart after the notes page. All right. There's a whole list here. Flip back that way a little, Heather. There's a whole list. It's not in there? Maybe they have it one more after that little chart. All right, so what I want you to do, I want you to think about some of those feelings and start making an emotional vocabulary. So I want you to think about some things that are quick for you. What are some things that you think might have been etched on your heart in your life? Start figuring out what it's called in there. So I want to just give you a couple minutes. If you only have one notebook between you, then put your initials next to yours. And if they're the same, that's fine. But what I found over time is that most of us have about 3 or 4 really quick feelings, buttons, fears, that seem to be ours uniquely, okay? Like I said, mine, inadequate, controlled, judged, misperceived, those are fast for me. I come by those naturally. So I want you to think about in general in your life, and then also maybe even in your relationship, what are some of those feelings that are quick for you? Now remember, they're not good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just information. So don't see these as negatively, okay? Let's look at them as information. Take a couple minutes and go through it. What do you think are some of your quick feelings? No? Well, you gotta just think about it. How have I always felt inside? What have I always done?
Oh, no, that's what it is.
Why do I think that those motivate? Yeah. Yeah, think about instances where start with the reaction and then work backwards. Okay. So coming from no. That's what happens before I think some things. Just try to and then read through the words, see if something gets Everybody doing all right? Yes, ma'am. That's okay. Hey, if you need to check 20, check 20, okay? So a lot of these are, good point. A lot of these are very familiar feelings to a lot of us. And some people are very emotional. Some people have had lots of experiences. So I would mark 12 of those for me. Some people will mark 20 of them. It's just, I think a few might be more close to home than some others. So it might be a little quicker. Like for me, inadequate is the one that resonates with me the most. I always tried to prove that I was good enough. So, but I felt rejected before, I felt abandoned before, you know. So I want you to hone in on 3 or 4 that might be really strong for you. If there are 6 or 8, fine. You know, they're just feelings, yeah. Yeah, good question. Does placement in your family? I'm the youngest. My brother Steve was the smart one. My brother Tom was the troublemaker, and John was the sportsman. That was it. So it implied that John was dumb, couldn't do math, you know, that all he was good for was sports. And Tom, he's just going to get in trouble. He doesn't know. And then Steve, leave him alone. He's the genius that just needs to think. And so I think that we do start having some of these identities built. It kind of seems like that in a lot of families. So that's where we get some of the birth order stuff from and some of the family systems theories. But yeah, you could definitely be impacted by those judgments. Yeah. All right, do we mark a few? All right, let's keep rolling here. All right, so I want you to think about, put a little mark on that page, and then let's go back to the outline, number 4 here. Okay. That quote by John Gottman is pretty interesting too, that I started reading. So, like toward the end, you'll know you are acting under the influence of a button when you regret what you did or said the moment you cool off. The words just popped out, you turned away and slammed the door behind you. You didn't think about it until afterwards. At the time, it was simply what you had to do. That was a button. That's a fear. That's something getting activated in you. And so we'll get to the point how these things operate in our relationships. But for right now, I want you to start looking at yourselves to be able to say, number 4 here, how do you usually respond or react when your buttons get pushed? Okay, so here's the first one. I am more aggressive in reactions to my feelings. That makes me a fighter. Okay, so that first line is a fighter. The second one, I am more passive in reactions to my feelings. I made up a word here, flighter, right? Fight or flight? Fight or flee. So I'm a flighter. So I know I'm aggressive when my buttons get pushed. I defend myself, I get critical, I rationalize, I do all kinds of stuff. But it's more aggressive. Okay? How many of you would say you're more passive when your buttons get pushed? Who of you would be a flighter?
Can you have different responses for different buttons?
You bet. You bet. Yeah, some people may react a little differently if they feel controlled because it's unfair. I'm going to fight back. Some people may shut down if they feel unworthy or condemned or, judged. So, yeah, I do think that most of us have a little combination. I think you can learn to have different types of reactions, but I think naturally, at the core, I'd probably be more aggressive than passive. So I'm more of a fighter. Now, who do you think I married if I'm a fighter? Well, it varies, but I married a flighter, okay? When Julie's buttons get pushed, she shuts down. She cries, she gets sad, she has very negative beliefs inside, and she shuts down. And so we have a very interesting cycle, all right? So I want you to start thinking of how you like or judge your ways of reacting. Do you like what you do when your buttons get pushed? Do you like who you become when you get reactive? All right, so that's the part we can judge as good or bad. And for most relationships, we find that it's not what we love. So here's an example. When Julie and I were first married, I didn't want to deal with my feelings. So I just wanted her to always tell me I was awesome. And if she could always tell me I was awesome, then we were great. And I was fine and she was fine. So how often do you spend, how much time do you spend telling each other you're awesome? And is it all the time, or does something get in the way sometimes? So when I got activated, when my buttons get pushed, it kind of went like this. If I thought I was trying to be helpful and she felt controlled, then she would confront me and then I would defend. So when we were first married, we were in a tiny little apartment. It was probably this big. And so I had gotten home from work and I walked through the little kitchen. It was just like a tube. And so there's like the living room, and then the kitchen, and then a bathroom, and then the bedroom, right? It was like 10 feet wide tube, 43rd Avenue, Glendale. And I'm walking through there, and I see a pot of water, you know, like a 10-inch pot of water on the stove, and the light's on, and the thing's hot, and then the lid is filled with water, and then the lid is on the counter next to the pot. So I go, huh. So I walk in there, and I put the lid on the pot. And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even know where Julie was. She comes out of the bedroom and goes, "What are you doing?" Just like that. "What are you doing?" And so right away, something happened in here. Psh, right? I go, "What?" I did the face. "What?" And right away I go, "What's your problem?" How does that go over, right? So Amanda's never done this before. So I go, "What? Everybody knows that water boils faster when it's covered. It's physics." And I said something like, "You have a college degree, you should know this." And oh man, you could just see it just close. And she points at my face and goes, "You are just trying to tell me that I don't cook as good as your mother, and why do you have to have everything your way?" I just got home. What happened? So, I thought I was right about water. Turns out I am. No, but, I thought I was right about water, and something pushed her buttons, right? So we get into it, and we start at it. And then I go, "Forget it." So I storm past her. I go in the bedroom, and I close the door, and I sit on the bed, and I go, I think we're married about 3 or 4 months at this time. And I sit on the edge of the bed, and I'm like, "What is going on?" And then I look around the room, and I notice that I have a couple of trophies out there, and there's a box that's got some of her stuff in it. And then there's like an AC/DC poster on this wall. No, but it's like all my stuff in the bedroom. Well, you know what was true? It was her apartment before I moved in there, and now all my stuff's around. And that was the first time that it hit me. She's right. I do have to have it my way. I wonder what that's about. And it hit me in the face like, oh man, what's my deal? And most people, and me too, we go, well, why is she so particular? Or why can't I do anything in my own house? You know, it's all about the other person. But I started realizing from that point forward that something always happened for me, and then I operated. And then I always defended like, okay, it's because I just love her and I want things to be great. But I realized that no, I want things to be my way, so I'll feel good about me. Because at the core, I never really wanted to deal with this. That was mine. So I reacted, okay, stay with me on this. I hate turning my back to y'all, but let's just stay with this for a little bit. And I have great writing, by the way, so it'd be easy for you to read. My reactions, defend, okay, so this is the fighter, defend, blame, rationalize, get critical, control, I get sarcastic.
Long list, John.
It is. Oh, it gets longer. So I get sarcastic, control, might belittle. I get negative beliefs. Right? So I'd act out. All right, that's just a few. So fight or flight? Fight. okay? So, my wife, she grew up in a home that was validating. She has 3 sisters, 1 older, 2 younger, 4 girls in the house. Company man, dad worked for the airlines for 35 years. Her mom was super Christian, housewife, mother, never said a swear word in her life. Her whole life was to serve, right? So Karen is this very peaceful, plodding along, very consistent, loyal, quiet person who is very validating. My wife, Julie, some of you have seen her sing here or whatever. She is probably one of the nicest people you ever meet. And so she was always told that she was awesome and great and could do anything she sets her mind to. She was told that she was the best. She was told that she was the cutest. She was told that she could do anything. And so, my wife loved music, perfect pitch, it's really disgusting. I can't get away with singing in the shower or the car or anything. So she was a classical pianist by 4th grade. She won state composition competitions and all this stuff. So Julie never had to wash the dishes. Mom would just go, oh, go play the piano, we can all listen, you know, from the time she's really young. So Julie grew up with valid, appreciated, loved, accepted. I grew up with invalidated, inadequate, controlled, judged, misperceived, right? So when I leave home, what do I want to get? What do I don't? I don't want to get what I used to get. When she leaves home for college, she wants to keep getting what she always got. So if she always got validated, then what would be one of her fears or buttons? You with me? Invalidated. Unappreciated. One in, unappreciated. You with me? Unaccepted. And then a big button that we discovered for Julie is don't measure up. If I have some criticism from my wife, she has a hard time with it because she's afraid that I'm judging her as not measuring up. Okay? So judge. All right. So I've already said that my wife is a what? A flighter. So she does a shutdown. She cries. She catastrophizes in her brain. See, her, if that's a word, her family was very peaceful. You don't confront each other, you just love them through it. In my family, go, why are you wearing that sweater? It looks like you got that in 6th grade. You know, my family was very critical and fast. So when Julie came into my family, she didn't know how to take it at Christmas time. I mean, it was mayhem, and everybody's like, well, that's weird. You know, everybody said what they thought. Not in her family. I mean, you can sit there for 9 hours at Christmas and everybody is complimenting each other. It was very strange to me. So she's more peaceful, so these things get pushed really quick for her, okay? And so when she reacts, it's mostly internal. She has negative beliefs. And then, inside, she's mind reading. So she'll go, well, he meant that to hurt me. Or he's just telling me that I don't cook like his mother, and he just wants it his way. He's so selfish and controlling. All that happens inside of her really fast. Okay? So, I could put more down here, but I won't for sake of time. So, when we talk about emotions, I'm going to suggest that we all have them. I want you to identify yours. So, flip over to the reactions chart. And I want you to mark some of your reactions, okay? Mark some of your reactions. What do you tend to do when your buttons get pushed? What do you tend to do? Fight or flight? Mark some of them. Now remember, This is not about judging good, bad, right, or wrong. This is just about what happens, okay? So there's no judgment here. Mark them down there. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you grow up with brothers or sisters?
Brothers, 2 older brothers.
I was just wondering, just one away from my house.
Yeah,
I cannot believe parents who love each other, even though I say those exact words, love each other every day.
right.
I wondered if it was the way, girl world and boy world.
Yeah, girl worlds and boy worlds are different.
They're very, very different.
But a lot of it is training. I mean, you know, it's the nature-nurture debate.
But they'll say things like that. What you like that for?
Yeah, it's critical. And I'll get to this too, but with couples, there are wives from your background that are used to that, but you want something very different. So now you want your husband to be able to validate you, be curious and open and soft. And so your role might have always been the one that tries to get people that way. So one of your reactions could be caretaking, which is okay. It's just you. Yeah, there you go.
Call it what you want.
All right. All right, let's track a little bit. I know I'm kind of pushing a little bit, rushing a little bit. I just want to lay this down real quick. So I've been really fortunate in my career, in college, grad school. I've gotten to meet some amazing people in my life. I've got to work with some amazing people. A lot of this material comes out of, it's called The DNA of Relationships. It was written by Gary Smalley, and Gary's son Greg, who is one of my best friends from way back. Greg and I went to grad school together. We've been working with this material for a lot of years. And so I work with it a little differently than Greg does, but he and a guy named Bob Paul had written the DNA book with Gary, because we started doing marriage intensives. We take 5 couples at a time for 4 solid days and try to figure out what's really happening with couples that really hurts their relationships. And so what I'm teaching you today is a lot of that work over the last 15, 20 years about what we really believe makes for a good relationship. And what we've identified, and I'll teach you in the next session, is that when stuff starts happening with you, you're the one that needs to grab it. Because in a marriage, if it's always the other person's fault, then we're back to this. Okay? So what I want you to start seeing today is, I brought this into my relationship. I had these feelings before I met my wife. She had these feelings before she met me. And we thought when we would get married, it would be a non-issue. So, because think about it this way. All right, ready? Stay with me real quick here. We're going to try to wrap this up. This is my heart. Okay, I have a football. I lost it for the guys. I had a football. I don't know, so I got a teddy bear. Hope everybody's okay with it. This is the best picture I have for the heart. Okay? So growing up, for me, inadequate, not good enough, like a failure, misperceived, controlled, lots of feelings. Well, when I left home, I didn't even know I had a heart. When I left home at 17, I packed up my car and drove across town to college to walk on the baseball team. And I was like, well, give me my heart back. I'm out of here. I'm finally my own person. And when I took it back, I was like, ooh, I know this sounds figurative, but hang with me. Ooh, if anybody knew I felt like this, or that I was this, nobody would really like me. So, I'll tuck this away with the rest of my belongings, and then I'll go perform, and hopefully some great stuff will happen. Well, then I meet Julie during college, and I'm like, wow, she's playing the piano at chapel, she's got this big hair, and like, wow, she's awesome, I'm gonna go meet her, you know. So I weasel my way in there, and we start dating, and things start coming along. So I would drive up to her apartment, and I'd open the door for her, and I'd clean my car, and she'd get in there and go, wow, your car's really clean, you're really great. And so I performed to try to get Julie to think that I was the safest, most honoring, loving guy ever. Well, why? Because I wanted to get something that I didn't think I ever got. I wanted her to give me the opposite of these. So when I performed and was awesome to her, then she thought, wow, this guy he's awesome. So he validates me, he cares for me, he appreciates me, he loves me. So I would perform to get her to tell me I was awesome, and she had no clue she was being put together. So I didn't really know either. That's how we were doing relationship. So when we hit the altar at Scottsdale Bible Church, 1990, sorry, I just started having a bunch of memories. So when I finally go, hey, she starts telling me how awesome I am. Whoa, that feels good. Hey, you're a great athlete. You used to be handsome. You pass your classes. You pay for your own school. You're independent. You're thorough. You're kind. You do tell your parents you love them. You know, you're great to everybody. Wow. I think I love you. Hey, we're back in action, right? That feels good. Finally, I found a safe person to tell me that I'm awesome. Now, I don't like this, but she seems to like it. So what do I do with my heart, 1990? I gave it to her. Tell me your name.
Angelica.
Angelica. So I go, okay, well, I don't like this, but you seem to love it. So here you go, honey. Take care of my heart. I guess I'll take care of yours. You take care of mine. We're square for the rest of our lives. That sounds good, doesn't it? Don't you give your heart to your soul mate? Yeah, why not? I found the most awesome woman ever. It was meant to be. God gave her to me. Thank you, God. Somebody to always tell me that I'm okay. Sounds good. And I guess I'll do the same for her. All right, think about this for a second. Have you ever dropped your cell phone, a wine glass, a piece of china, your glasses outside? You ever drop your coffee in a brand new car? A baby? I've dropped a baby before. He's 16. He's got a little twitch, but he's fine. He's fine. How many of you have ever dropped anything on accident and broken it or messed it up? Okay, how many people in this lifetime in the world will drop something on accident or hurt something on accident? What's the percentage? 100%, everybody. How do you feel when you drop something and break it? You feel horrible, right? What do you tell yourself? Oh, you big dummy, right? And then what do you try to do? Try to clean it up, fix it, hide it, deny it, right? But most of us who have pretty good intentions, we try to fix it, right? So I want you to start thinking about it this way, and this, I think, undergirds this whole premise. If my heart is the most important gift God's given me, if your heart stops, what happens to you? Where you meet Jesus, where does the Spirit go? Thought about it this way? In your heart. Is God saying His Word that your heart is important? Right. Above all else, guard your heart. It's the wellspring of life. What have you done with that thing? I gave it to Angelica. What are the chances she's going to drop it? 100%. And when you drop my heart, who's going to be upset? I go, oh, honey, what? Who's going to be upset?
You'll be upset.
Well, what about you? You just dropped it.
Yes.
Yeah, you're going to be upset, right? And I'm going to go, honey, come on, what's the deal? And you're going to try to what? Fix it. Now, what if you do your best to try to fix it and I go, is that all you're going to do? Can't you do this or this or this or this? Then how are you going to feel? Like I dropped yours. But, so if I'm not taking care of your heart, and I put it on a shelf, and I think you've hurt me, and you don't do it to my satisfaction, then what do we have? What are you going to end up doing? Put mine on the shelf. I got yours on the shelf, you got mine on the shelf. And until you please me, I won't please you. What do we have? We have a stalemate. We have a standoff. Because I just tasked her to take care of the most important gift God gave to me. Make sense? That's why I want you to start thinking about what have you always done with yourself, and what are you trying to make your spouse to be do for you? And should it be your responsibility? How do you react, and is it safe? Is it open? Make sense? All right, so can I please have my heart back? Yes. Ooh, that feels better. Now, think about it this way. I want to get to this next session to be able to say, the best relationship I know of is I take responsibility for my heart, and I'm really good to it, especially in the Lord. How does God see me? Does God see me as inadequate? Like a failure? Misperceived, controlled, judged? No. He sees me as valid, adequate, loved, seated with Him in the heavenlies, fearfully and wonderfully made, who I am in Christ. Who's more powerful, my little wife or the God of the universe who's in me? So, we'll get to that. But, what do you do with this? What have you always done with it? And what have you tasked your fiancé to do with it? Now, I think this is the best move. I'll take care of me, you take care of you. I'll figure out me, you figure out you. I'll share myself with you, and you can be really nice to me. You can share yourself with me, and I'll be really nice to you. So when I go home and I tell my wife, man, I'm feeling really inadequate today. I think nobody really understood me. It's Guts the Bible, and I think they didn't respond very well, and I just feel like a failure. Would that be true? I don't know. But are the feelings real? Yeah. I just did that to myself. So when I share my heart with my wife, what do I really want? I want her to go, oh, honey, I know what that feels like. Oh, bummer. Or do you get, well, did you tell them this, and did you do this, and what about this, and why did you offend people, and I can't believe you did it that way. That's how we work in relationships. It's just not helpful. So I want to train you in your marriage to figure out your own heart and to figure out your own reactions. So here's what I want you to do for closing this part. We'll take a couple minutes to do it. Go to that one sheet that looks, it's got the little fingers on it. Okay, so Greg Smalley and I call this the reactive cycle. In the book I mentioned, it calls it the fear dance. So here's what I want you to do. Put one of your names here at the top, on that, by that one button pusher, and then put the other name on the bottom. And then what I want you to do is transfer your feelings that you marked, 4 or 5 of them, 3, 4, or 5 of them, underneath each of your names, just like I did here. Okay? So Jonathan, you put yours up there, and then Amanda, you put yours. Okay. And And then I want you to take some of your reactions and put them under the reactions just like this. Right? Let's take a couple minutes to do that, and then we're going to transition into the last session.